As promised, Eddie from NorCal Gun Vault is with us online at norcalgunvault.com. I'll text you, but since you're here early, happy Veterans Day. Thanks for your service and your family's service.
Absolutely.
So we were just talking about the election, which is tomorrow. Americans are increasingly buying guns, say reports, in the run-up to the presidential election. This is the fourth or fifth cycle in a row of this. Yeah. Background checks were up year over year for 3 months in a row. Latest month we have data on is September. This is all from the FBI. Are you seeing and hearing that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing a lot of people coming in asking questions, just trying to figure out where they want to be. Still a lot of new first-time gun buyers, that we're still doing a lot of the training on the basic firearm ownership to make sure that, they know how to be safe, know how to store. It's still quite a bit of that.
And that is your target spot, no pun intended. Obviously, you love, gun owners and hunters and enthusiasts coming in, but you really get like a joy out of the first-time gun buyer coming into your store because you cater to them. And it's one of the things that attracted us when I found you finally. Oh, wow, you mean a gun store that somebody can walk into and not made to feel like an idiot? Right. Because they don't know what the difference is between they can't even pronounce Sig Sauer. They don't know what a Glock is. And the clerks look down at you and go,
you're not afraid to ask or feel intimidated. Like y'all make you feel A-okay to ask those questions.
Right.
Now, you said the training word, which I want to get to because I was mentioning earlier what a passion it is for you. But before we do that, what is the California roster of handguns and what's going on with it? Because this is a big thing. We're even talking about it in your new commercial because new guns are becoming available, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What is all this?
So the California roster of handguns is a list of handguns that the state of California has tested and deemed safe for mere mortals like us to use. The roster does not apply to California law enforcement or federal law enforcement because they have the training and they need access to different types of firearms. The roster went up before the Ninth Circuit again, and it had been challenged, overturned, but yet the injunction in place when the state finally took it to the Ninth Circuit. The Ninth Circuit basically the state didn't challenge the microstamping portion of it. Okay, so there was the loaded chamber indicator, the magazine disconnect, and the microstamping. They dropped that requirement. Well, once they dropped that requirement, the other two are just mechanical things that the gun manufacturers could do to the guns to get them on roster. And we've seen, quite a few of the newer, because for a while we hadn't had a new gun come on roster. By new, I mean like a new design since 2014, 2013.
Wow.
And so it's enabled some of the gun manufacturers to actually put some of their newer, better, safer guns on the market. And it's really created a lot of interest in upping your game a little bit.
And you're able to get a hold of these and find them for customers and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so training. This is a big thing for you. I know you believe in it deeply, and you're doing a lot of training. Holidays are coming up. A lot of people think like, gun store? What the hell am I going to get at a gun store? I don't
know. Kinds of things.
We don't own guns. We're not into guns. And there are at NorCal Gun Vault, there are all kinds of things, including the Rad Radio food products. But also, there's a ton of self-defense stuff that has nothing to do with guns, whether it's pepper spray, tasers, things like that, if you're interested in that. But this training thing is really the kind of thing, I was using the example earlier, that you and I were talking off the air, Eddie. We don't know what's going to happen in the next week, two, in this society. Right. But 4 years ago, it didn't stop after the Saturday after the election. It went all the way to January 6th and beyond. And whether it's that or a car accident with your kid in the car or who knows what, you have all sorts of various trainings, whether it's gun related or I know you're a big fan of the Stop the Bleed thing. So where do you want to start with all this various training that you're doing? Because I know you're so passionate about it.
Well, and again, it's just getting people to understand what they don't know so that they are more prepared. And prepared being the word, whether it's training on safety on firearms, what are the laws, for the basic firearm ownership class, what are the laws of what rights do you have to protect your home, your family, and then getting into the preparedness side of it, of making sure that you can take care of your family, you can take care of yourself if we have some type of crisis. Like COVID was a huge example of that. They shut everything down, but then also everybody went out and bought everything, and it's where you couldn't get things again, and we're starting to see that again, and it's like wanting to know what do I need? What do I got to get? What do I got to do? And getting people to understand ahead of time what things they need to be thinking about. And then finding out what they have in their own home that could meet some of those needs and what needs do they need to fulfill. Also getting them checklists, things so that they don't have to think. Speed is of the essence when you're in a crisis, and the less you have to think, the less stress that's on you. You already know in advance what you're going to be looking for, what you're going to be grabbing, and again, just making sure that you are mentally, and that's a big portion of preparedness in anything, is the mental preparedness. And then physically prepared,
And a lot of people, our mindset is around things like riots and other.
Right.
There's always natural disasters.
Right.
We live in Northern California, Northern Nevada area. Northern California earthquakes at any time. Those of us that are old enough remember some pretty harrowing earthquakes and things that happen. Wildfires and how that can displace you or isolate you, things like that. So let's go through. By the way, we're with Eddie from NorCal Gun Vault. You got questions? It's 888-989-9811. You can write in RAD@radradio.com. We'll get to as much as we can here. Let's go through. What are the different courses that you offer? And I assume they can sign up for everything at NorCalGunVault.com.
Right.
So pick your favorite course and start there.
I mean, my favorite right now is the preparedness course, but there's the basic firearms course. There are care and feeding of your firearms. So those are all cleaning classes. So if you buy a firearm, you don't know how to clean it, or you've got one that your grandfather gave you and you're like, man, what am I going to do with this thing? We can help you out with that. So those are tenets, and they've been pretty regular. The preparedness thing has kind of come up because, again, wildfires. If you live in the foothills, you can get snowed in. You could have flooding events. I mean, there's a lot of, you think about Northern California, and it's not all just valley. But again, you get another event where you get cut off from things. How are you going to sustain yourself? The rule of threes comes into play. You can live 3 minutes without air. Some people longer, a little bit longer. You can live 3 days without water before it starts really affecting you, and you can go 3 weeks without food before it starts affecting you. So you keep those things in mind on a priority list, right? And getting water isn't always about stocking up on bottled water. It's how do you get water when there is no water, or how do you make safe water out of unsafe water? And those are all things that we talk about within the class.
And do you still stock like MREs, meals ready to eat, things like that you have that people I'm married to a veteran, so of course we have an entire backpack of these things, and they're good for like 25 years, worst case scenario. And I'm sure you at least talk about that, and you stock those things as well still.
We do, and it's when we can get a hold of them because they're starting to kind of dry up right now.
I bet.
Through our avenues. So. But I try and make sure we can, if we have them, we can get them in. And again, sometimes it's just the simple stuff that we talk about in the class, like getting rice, flour, things like that.
Right. Things you can stock up on your own in the pantry.
Right, exactly. That can supplement everything else. Because maybe if you're eating rice and beans for 3 days, and then you get to have an MRE, then it kind of spices it up a little.
And a lot of what you're talking about too goes back to the mental preparedness, because if you know you have these things. If you find yourself in that situation, it's less panic. It's more like, okay, well, we already prepared for that. That's literally why it's called the preparedness course.
Right. When we were talking about this before, just you and I, my husband talking to you and your wife about, you said something where I'm like, oh my gosh. So everything y'all just said, but then you were like, and what's my physical ability if I have to leave the house? Because sometimes with this stuff, maybe you're holed up eating these things, but sometimes you have to leave your house. Yep. And if you cannot hike, right, or if you can't walk a mile, right, what is your plan of some type of transportation to get where you need to go? And, well, and then there's always the second layer, are you going to be able to? What are the roads like? But it's like, oh, God, yeah. When you watch those movies, they're all walking a lot,
Right.
It's like
they're stuck in traffic.
Yeah, like what's your ability with that?
And how far do you want to go with it? How far are you willing to? How far are you capable? I mentioned, I'm not joking, we have multiple backpacks at Williams Manor, and inside of them, you've got all the makeshift things to get a tent, make a sleeping bag, little tiny burners, the meals, the things like that. So literally you could grab it and go, but like Dawn said, well, how are you going to get there? What's your path and things like that.
Yeah.
So with the preparedness course, when, how often are you doing them? How can people sign up?
So we have 6 sessions or 3 sessions, 2 classes or 2 topics per session, and we do them over 3 different Saturdays. So like November 9th, this coming Saturday, is the first set of 2, which is why prepare, food and water. The next Saturday will be, and I don't have the dates in my head real fast, will be hygiene and medical, and then shelter and warmth. and the last class is on the following Saturday is communication and power and location and transportation, just so that we kind of try and cover all the bases. And it's all just a start. There's only so much I can cover in an hour, and I am working on trying to get some more advanced classes in some of those topics for after the new year, just because it's taken me a while to get everything set up for it, and finding some what I think are qualified people to help me teach it.
Now, are all these listed at NorCalGunVault.com?
They are all on the website. I've got the classes listed through February, or actually through January right now. And again, you can sign up for all 3 classes at once, which gets you a discount. If it's you and a spouse, there's a discount for couples signing up as well. And you can sign up either, for any one of the 3 classes if you just want to know more about something, or the whole 6.
So if you go to NorCalGunVault.com, and after I click on that I'm 18,
Go to training.
what should I click on? Training. So I go to training, boom. I'm doing this in real time to make sure that we've got this all right. And it pretty soon pops up. There's all of them. There's the Emergency Preparedness Essentials course, all right there. And then they just click on them, get the date, sign up, etc.
Yep.
And it's that easy. Okay, we got this email, rad@radradio.com, from member Maggot Adam.
Hi, Adam.
Says, I try to take all the classes that Eddie offers at NorCal Gun Vault.
Aw.
I took all the preparedness classes, as well as the Stop the Bleed class and the more comprehensive active shooter class.
Damn, you are ready.
All were very informative, and I'm looking forward to the communications class Eddie is developing. He touched on communications briefly in the preparedness class, but the communications aspect can be a class in itself, as there is just a massive amount of very interesting information. Love you guys, the show, and I love Eddie and the entire NorCal Gun Vault crew. You mentioned the communications
Adam.
thing. What do you, is this like the cell phone you can't communicate type thing, and how are we going to get along?
What levels you've got? There's a term called PACE. It's used in communication, but you can use it in anything. There's primary, alternate, contingency, and emergency. So what are your 4 methods of communicating? Primary typically is cell phone. Alternate could be radios. It could be satellite radios. By satellite radio, I mean like a Garmin inReach or some type of satellite texting. Your contingency could be ham radio, GMRS radio, and then your emergency could just be, whatever else is left. I mean,
Smoke signals?
smoke signals, sure.
Yeah.
Loud siren, megaphone, things, anything. But I mean, again, there's a lot of degrees of what you can get into. Some require a license, some don't. And Tammy and I have been playing around with a couple of radios we have. We're trying to see how far we can talk and not actually be on a cell phone.
God, that just seems so huge, especially because the day and age we're in, where we just have learned we don't know how to communicate without our phones. I mean, we just don't. It's right there. There's no like, oh, I got to wait till I get home to call someone, or where's a payphone. It's communication is right in our fingertips at all times. And if something major happens where the cell towers don't work, you need to know other ways.
Think about this. If the cell towers go down and you have to pick up a landline, how many phone numbers of your family member do you know?
Yeah.
Like 4.
Things are written down, right?
Right,
Exactly.
yeah.
You lose it,
Many.
you better have some stuff written down. That's part of having a communications plan. Where are you going to meet? What are you going to do? What's your ultimate location? I mean, there's so many variables in this that you could step ahead and consider, so that when the time comes, you've already got some things in line.
If they had to only pick one preparedness class because of time, money, whatever, and they're looking at the websites, oh my God, there's all emergency preparedness. I don't know. Should I know about location? Should I know about hygiene? What would you point them to?
Probably the first class of why you prepare, because it's going to make you aware of the things to look for, and then also food and water, because they're kind of paramount in this, is how to try and stretch everything as long as you can. I mean, you could buy a case of ramen for like nearly nothing, and at least it'll subsist, for a minute.
Now, I noticed it looks like we're on pause on Stop the Bleed, which is a hugely popular course.
Right.
Not
My
only,
instructor is tied up.
so it's coming up. Keep checking in, we hope.
Right. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And we'll announce when we have another class set up.
You mentioned when we started this with like new gun owners, basic firearm ownership. Is that the class for I don't really know what to do,
Yeah.
but I want to
Right.
own a gun?
That's it.
And they can take the class without owning a gun. Maybe it might even be better
Right.
to take it and then
Then you'll know beforehand, and we'll show you how to shoot and use the smokeless range for marksmanship training. And we've got a new thing where we can actually have recoil on a firearm, so people can actually feel it if they haven't before, to understand the reaction on it. So.
And care and feeding, my experience with gun owners, a lot of people that own guns, they just forget, or they get distracted, or it's like, but care and feeding is about having that gun do its job. God forbid you ever need it, basically.
Right. And keeping it in good condition. I mean, you may have a gun and then you get a new gun. Well, you don't know how to break that gun down. You don't know what all the parts are. So, I mean, there's always something you can learn. Even if it's an older gun and you broke it down before, you just want a little bit more comfort that you know how to take care of that one firearm.
And what's the active threat class? The guy Eddie, or I'm sorry, what was it? Adam referred to like the active shooter class.
Yeah, that was in conjunction with the Stop the Bleed. That was another thing our Stop the Bleed instructor teaches is what are things to consider if you're in an active shooter situation? What are some things that you have to think about? It's kind of like preparedness, but for active shooters. What do you have to look for? What do you have to consider? How do you drag somebody out of a situation?
Now, unfortunately, since this is the reality we live in, with school shootings being so prevalent, are kids allowed to do these types of classes as well?
Yeah, we have a lot of kids come into the basic firearm ownership class. I mean, we had a family bring in their daughter was like 6, and she really wasn't able to kind of get all the stuff.
Yeah.
But what we taught her was, if you see a firearm, you go get mom. Don't even hesitate. Just you see that, you run and go get them. Even simple things like that, teaching them the safety portion of it.
We just got this email from Carlos.
Hey, Carlos.
It says, I went into NorCal Gun Vault about 2 weeks ago to stock up on ammo, just in case. I was not a huge fan of ARs after having built one, never shooting it, then trading it in for a more simple and easy to maintain lever action. After just wanting to browse the shop, one of Eddie's guys, I wish I could remember his name, but he looked like the new guy, showed me one of their new arrivals, and I was sold. Eddie even gave me some tips on using the rad turkey brine for the gravy. All in all, I just wanted to say the guys there are exceptional. Eddie is such a great, personable guy to talk and deal with. When picking up my stuff, I picked up some patches for my kids who plays airsoft, which the story behind the patches, I think, is airtime worthy. All right, so you do have the Rad Radio turkey brine,
We do, sir.
and you
Yes,
use
sir.
it every year.
Yes, sir. Every year.
So you can talk to Eddie about tips. Justin says, hey, Eddie, very open-ended question here, and I'm not sure all of the classes you offer. I think Brandon kind of covered this, but I'm just curious if you have content designed for young children.
I wouldn't say it's designed for young children, but because like the course the care and feeding classes, not going to be at that level, but even the preparedness stuff, if you have kids there, I can speak to that. I can talk to them and get them to understand their role in this as well. I mean, I do the teaching on the basic firearm ownership and the preparedness, and I can teach it at all levels. So
I love that they're interested in that for their kids, because we've heard so many stories of a kid making phone calls and having that
mindset.
Yeah, to be able to make the phone call, the 911 for something going on at home, and they're 4, right? And they're staying on the line and they're listening, and
And conversely, just a couple weeks ago in a suburb of Sacramento, Roseville, was it a 2-year-old or a 4-year-old got a hold of a gun, and
yeah.
it ended as terribly as you can imagine.
Oh my gosh.
Stephen wrote in, rad@radradio.com. I just recently moved from Nevada to California. I have a gun registered to me in Nevada. How do I go about getting it registered in California?
If you've been in the state less than 3 months, you can go on to a website and register it. Let them know you have it.
Like
If
like the California Department of Justice website?
That's correct. Yeah.
Did
And
they have
we
you
can
turn
show
it
them.
in?
Yeah, it's called CFARS, CFARS. That's the website. If you just Google that, you'll find it. And then the other method is a little more complex, but you can come into the store and we can try and figure out a way to get that on there for you.
So all of the various training classes are listed. You go to norcalgunvault.com, you go to training, everything's listed there. Yes, you have something else you want to add?
I want to bring out one more thing, because I'm kind of releasing this on the air. This is the first.
Ooh. Well.
So we've created a loyalty membership program for NorCal Gun Vault.
Nice.
Where you can sign up, you can become a member. You're going to it'll be monthly, $15 a month or $150 a year. You'll save some money on the yearly. If you sign up between now and the end of November, you get an extra month free. But you go to the website, you click on About Us and More, and then you go to the membership program, and it's going to take you to the page where you can choose which version you want. There's going to be member-only events. I mean, I might even cook for some of these events.
Oh,
What?
hey.
Free ultrasonic cleaning, one free ultrasonic cleaning, a free FFL transfer, and anybody who's done those know how expensive they can get. And it would just be for one serial number, one item, but 2 free ammo transfers, and that's up to $100 value.
Dang.
Private showing, so if we get new guns coming in on consignment, they'll be held, and you'll be informed of what they are before they go to the floor, and new access to early access to pre-ordered of like high demand items. So
Yeah.
we're trying to bring something to our loyal
That's cool.
listeners like
And again, the quick way to find it is how?
go to NorCalGunVault.com, click on About Us and More, and then click on the loyalty program link, and they can sign up right through there.
Robert just wrote in and said, did Eddie just say they have kickback on the guns for his smokeless range? I have a 13-year-old who's all into Call of Duty, and I would love to take him there to try out how a gun actually works before a real gun range.
Absolutely.
And that's actually one of the reasons.
Yeah. You need to make an appointment for the one with the kickback because we use it pretty exclusively for training. Because it is a real gun, but with an air canister to it. But if they want to do it that way, we can bring them in and definitely show them.
And so all the training stuff's online. We've talked about that in store in terms of gifts and everything. I mean, it's amazing the wide range of stuff you have, but you also have to offer gift cards as well.
Yes.
So anybody that's into anything that has anything to do with hunting, self-defense, training, maybe it's like, oh, maybe so and so would like this. Just walk in, gift cards available.
Right.
All
Yes.
right. Anything else?
No, like I said, the loyalty program, once you sign up, we will send you more information, and there's going to be more to add to it over time. This is just our baseline of what we've got in play.
So they're at NorCalGunVault.com. They're in Rockland on Stanford Ranch Road. There's a big Costco there. It's on the other side of Stanford Ranch Road. All of that's at NorCalGunVault.com. Thanks as always, Eddie.
Well, thank you very much for having me.